Okay, friends, tonight we are invited to go through this easy topic. When humility heals guilt. And we say easy because it's the one of the top virtues to achieve, humility. And we come here after putting together, compiling information in several books from Spiritism, so we can share with you more about it. Before we go to the books and share the evidences that humility can heal guilt, I'm going to share with you two stories from Chico Xavier. Let me just ask Carlos. Carlos, you're okay here? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So, did you know that Chico Xavier loved instruments? That was new, right? To many of us. And of all instruments he loved especially, he loved classical music. And he usually kept it playing throughout the whole day if he could. Because the high spirits always tell us that the vibrations of classical music can really bring good spirits, because bad spirits don't like classical music. And we're talking about smooth classical music. We're not talking about crazy classical, because they're different types, right? And smooth ones, he loved especially Beethoven, Mozart, and it can raise our vibrations as well. For those who want to learn more about the importance of arts in general, including music, there's a book already in English named Spiritism in the Arts. Every Tuesday at Kardec Radio at 9:30 a.m. there's a live program that goes through with Fred Gouveia, who used to be a conductor of an orchestra, and he's a violinist, and he's also a spiritist in New York, together with Josanna Vaz, who is an actress and a spiritist. And together they read the chapters and discuss about it. So they have a lot of background in that area to share with us. It's basically their strength in that regard. So we would recommend it. And that book in particular by Leon Denis teaches us the importance of arts. Our society is not very well doesn't understand much about the power of the arts. We think arts is simply an expression of whatever we're feeling, but in Spiritism we see art as an expression of harmony that leads to beauty, beauty that translates into the divine harmony. So for us, it's essential to boost that part in us in whatever way we can. Daily, not only children, especially children, but mostly also the adults, they need to cherish it. So one day Chico Xavier had an opportunity to share with friends that he loved one day to play an instrument, and he chose the piano. You know, some people heard about it, and people who thought that high spirits, because he's a medium, would come and compose new symphony. Crazy stories, right? They gave a new piano to Chico Xavier. Chico was excited about it. But then, and this is just in Chico Xavier's case, not our case, Emmanuel came and said, Chico, do you think you have time for it? What about the people you have to help? Can you imagine 30 minutes, an hour? But he had so many people to help out. So he made a choice not to go through with the plan of learning piano. That doesn't mean we shouldn't learn the piano. We don't have thousands of people knocking our door daily and in great need of help. But this is to show how humble Chico Xavier was. Because he could have said, you know, Emmanuel, I don't care. I want to learn it. It's good for me. And nowadays, we know there's enough science saying that the brain becomes spatially more integrated, as we say, when we learn to play an instrument, when we learn arts in general. Because arts work especially with the right hemisphere of the brain. And what is interesting is that we have enough science pointing out that it is on the right hemisphere that we modulate negative emotions. So playing the arts, working with arts, can help us modulate emotions if we use arts to our advantage, to soothe our souls. Then there is another story of Chico Xavier to show us how humble he was. He had many friends who loved fishing. And you know, amongst men it's so common, especially in Brazil, that they get together, especially in the state of Minas Gerais, where there are so many things. They gather together to go fishing, etc. But Chico was very busy, so he never had the time because he was always helping so many people. And the friends kept asking, come on, Chico, come one day with us, come one day with us. And he did. He came with his friends. And, you know, fishing is about like not speaking at all, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a good practice for anyone who wants to practice silence, go fishing. Mm-hmm. Or you won't catch anything. You have to be very quiet. Mm-hmm. And then Chico Xavier was there for hours. All of his friends caught many, and he didn't. Any. And then he said, Chico, what's happening to you? And then he said, you know, I'll tell you the truth. Actually, I haven't used the bait. Because I didn't want to catch any. I was hoping I wouldn't catch any because I felt sorry for the fish. So this is a good balance. Ego versus the life of others. Because for us, it's usually competition. Even amongst friendship. I do it, I'm good at it, and I do it, and I'm this, and always showing off, right? Chico let that pride dissolve, because for him, the life of the fish was more important. Seems simple because it's Chico Xavier, because now we know him. But in everyday life, it could be any of us. We're so competitive that we don't think twice competing with family members and even friends. It's a sign that we need to work on our self-esteem. When we want to show off to family members and friends, it's a sign that we need to work on our self-esteem. Because we cannot prioritize the love of friendship or the love for family, because we need always to compete. It's pride. And when we do it, we go home and we feel guilty. Every day, those poor choices never end up well, even if it's a minor thing, even if it's a thought of a word we never spoke, of a feeling we never shared with anyone, or of actual actions and words we spoke. We go home and feel like, oh, I wish I haven't said it. Guilt mounts. What do we do? On Monday, at our mediumistic meeting, a guardian spirit of the center came by, right? And said, There is so much we can do to help everyone who asks for prayer or help. Because if you keep being petty in your day-to-day life, and he used the word in Portuguese, mesquinhez. Right? Same in Spanish. The natural result will be guilt. And the problem is that soon after guilt, we need to put a mask that we're good to feel better for ourselves. And we love when people tell us that we're good because it comforts us. Because there's so much guilt inside that it's good that people look at us and say, oh, you're so good. Oh, thank God. But I go home and I don't feel it. And then I enter sometimes the illusion of what people said. That's why Jesus said, and the Spirit reminded us, Jesus never accepted the title of good. So who are we to accept it? How can the Spirit protect us if we don't stop playing the games of the masks in our lives? Based on this, knowing very well about this mechanism, way before humanity knew deeply about psychology, Ben Franklin knew he had his needs as well to trim down parts of his character and improve others. He wrote a list of 13 virtues. Our children are studying it, and we recommend everyone, including ourselves, to keep studying, aiming at those virtues. One of them is humility. And when he defined it, he simply defined humility by saying, imitate Jesus and Socrates. He was a genius. He was only 20 years of age. And it's so interesting that when we are putting together the children's activities, we don't find, right, anything for children on the internet regarding the 13 virtues of Ben Franklin. Of everything he's done, this is possibly the only thing that is the most phenomenal that nobody pays attention. And we understand why, because many people are like, come on, Ben Franklin, what could he tell about humility, right? In his autobiography, he confessed, I'm not good at it. And I know I boast myself, I brag about myself, but at least, he says, I'm aiming at it. But he's proposing it to us. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, we can read more about Socrates. At the introduction, Kardec places Socrates and Plato as the forerunners of Christianity and describe more about them. So, really, Ben Franklin was right on spot when he mentioned Socrates as a model for humility. So it's good for us as homework that we Google it, read about it, and investigate more Jesus and Socrates in regards to humility. Humility, like in Jesus' case, to the point a Messiah coming, and at the most crucial time when the disciples are discussing who is going to be the successor of the community, he doesn't speak a word, but he teaches a non-verbal lesson by washing the feet of the disciples. I mean, if today it's not easy to wash the feet of anybody, imagine at the time, in those dirty roads, at a time when people didn't took a shower every day, and we didn't have running water either, so washing the feet was pretty muddy. sometimes I wonder how he did it for so many of the disciples. Like the disciples were 12 without running water faucet or a hose or bathroom or bath. I don't know. It was labor intensive for sure. That's the first conclusion. More than if it were nowadays. Try to wash the feet of your children out of the bathroom somewhere else without a faucet. It's very complicated. Imagine then. So when we see this passage, we think, oh, it's second nature. It's not like, oh, come here, there's running water and there's soap and the perfumes. It's not beautiful. People didn't have nail salon there, clippers. Sorry to go into the details, but we need to contextualize to really feel the extension of his action. So, in the Spirit's book, Kardec asks to the high spirits, what can we do to progress steadily, meaning at a good pace, and avoid mistakes? And they answer, a sage in ancient times said, know thyself, because we don't know. And as Socrates said, I know that I know nothing. So do we know that much about ourselves? It's like a computer. We know a few functions, right? Unless we're experts in computer. Right? If we know a few, but majority of us don't, and then suddenly the computer surprises us. Something pops up, we're like, oh my gosh, where did it come from? It's just like us. It's just like us. We're living our lives and then suddenly we do something like, where did that come from? Because we don't know ourselves. Of course, many lives, many masters. No, that's another book, nothing to do with it. But humility is the opposite of pride. And the Spirit said that the main obstacles in our lives come from pride and selfishness, but not the American pride. We're not talking about this pride in terms of good self-esteem. We're talking about the one that makes us feel superior to others.
That's why there's so many tragedies like that the Romans and Greeks and the plays, like their main, like all the heroes' downfall was pride. They always were too into themselves, and they always
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. Exactly. And though time has passed, we don't seem to have progressed like dramatically in that regard. But why? Because we're afraid. We're afraid of not speaking up. We're afraid, we think we're gonna be a doormat if we don't fight, show off, brag about ourselves. And we hear, especially in American schools, and I say this because in Brazil, though we have pride there in a different way, our children, it's not beautiful to say I'm the best. In different cultures, in Japan, it's ugly to say I'm the best. In America, we incite our children from early stages to say I'm the best. And that's a big problem. Huge. Huge problem. Why? What is pride? Dictionary. Let's go with the dictionary. It's easy. Ostentatious display. Look at this, guys. Yes, the view is nice, but mostly I want people to look up here and think how rich I am. I thought about something, but I'm not gonna say it. Probably everybody thought the same. ostentatious display. We already said that, but we need to repeat. There is a tradition here in the United States. You buy a new house, and you do housewarming. But you invite everyone, even those you don't know well. Because it's beautiful show. We have programs on TV where celebrities show their homes. Even the bedroom, the wardrobe, the drawers.
The closets are sometimes the biggest room in the house.
Yeah, like, they just knew the consequences of it all. And they live an illusion thinking that the world is going to say, I'm happy for you. We wish. But that's only in Jupiter. On Earth, that rarely happens. Rarely. Even within the family circle. Because as Jesus said to Peter, most often, we are fragile. Not evil exactly, but fragile. Because we think, why not me, right? Why do you have a Ferrari? Not me. I work so hard. Peter asked this question to Jesus once. How come my wife works so hard and Joanna of Cusa, the wife of Cusa, she was rich. She was Roman. How come? She has maids. She has everything. The answer is in the book Good News by Humberto de Campos. But she was never egotistic. If we could have a pride thermometer, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 7, item 12, the spirits give us some tips about where we are in terms of that ostentatious display. They say, when pride reaches extremes, it is an indication that a downfall is close at hand. Exactly what you said. The helmet is so cute. Since pride comes before a fall, I'm wearing a helmet. And it's funny because in the Living Spring book, Emmanuel uses the symbolism of a helmet to talk about hope. The helmet of hope. In a way, matches. Hope that I'll be fine even though I'm gonna fall. Right? And it's funny because we go through the experiences knowing that it's not gonna work, but we tease the forces. When we're not well, we don't post anything on Facebook. But when everything, like the stars are brightly shining, we're like boom, 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 boom. And we know that the people who are there are not necessarily friends. They are acquaintances whom we barely know. Because everything is so connected, we barely know everybody whom we're connected with. And we share that much. But what is the problem? Let's see what the good spirits tell us about pride. What is the problem with pride? They say, first of all, it creates disbelief. I'll go through each and every one, but just a list. It creates disbelief. It incites base passions. Changes our perception of reality. Makes us more vulnerable to low order spirits. Increases present suffering. Increases future suffering. And postpones progress. Everything is in the Spirit's book, and we'll see one by one. First, pride creates disbelief. When talking about God and the understanding and the feeling of belief in God, the spirits say it is pride that creates the disbelief. Human pride believes in nothing above itself. So when we believe in God, we're humble, more humble. So you believe in God. So point, check. Okay, check mark. Good job for all of us. We're not that bad. You see? Yes, because not believing in God is a sign that we think there's nothing above us. And that's critical. Oh, but Vanessa, I know so many good people who don't believe in God. How far can they go? Oh, but I know so many people who are even say they believe in God. Oh, do they really believe the God we're talking about? I'm not so sure. It depends. So everything is relative. But one thing is for sure. It makes sense that if I don't believe there's anything above me, I'm being very prideful, right? Proud. It's clear. It's logical. Pride incites base passions. The spirits explain that pride drags us down to our animal nature. For example, men who believe they are powerful and their employees have to be subjected to their whims. Nowadays, they are all being on the watch because that's no longer being tolerated. But there are many parts of the world in which that happens. What about honor killings? In Pakistan, it's prohibited. But they say yearly 1,000 women are killed in honor killings. And they say that's the least that they know, yearly.
That's just the one thing I know.
They know about, exactly. Honor killings is like the woman did something the family didn't approve.
It doesn't even have to be something she did. It could be something that was done to her, and they'll still...
Exactly. It's outrageous. And that's pride, right? I think I can kill you, and that's okay. So pride leads us to this beast-like behaviors. It's I would say an animal doesn't even deserve the category of defining this behavior because it's lower than animal, because animals don't do this. They don't do honor killings. Pride changes our perception of reality. The good spirit saying question, last question of the Spirit's book, 1019. Answer. Pride blocks our perception of God's laws. And it's so true because neuroscience already shows, neuropsychology, that our emotions can make our reasoning be blurred. Antonio Damasio, one of the leading neuroscientists of emotion, he says leading with our emotions is crucial for us to have lucid, clear thinking. So when we are filled with this pride that we're talking about, it can blur our vision. It's when a father or a mother feels entitled to deciding whom the child or the son or the daughter is going to get married to. Hello? You're not going to be the one getting married with that person. Why you're putting your finger there? You should be humble and say, I can't decide it. Right? Just one example. Or when we think that we're better than others because of our race. we can't see clearly that the other person, whether they are whatever color, from whatever race, they are as humans as we are. Or because of socioeconomic status, we can't see the human behind, like Meghan Markle. She got married to the prince, and now she's being harassed she's pregnant, and she's being harassed for being biracial.
And a commoner.
Exactly. It's outrageous that in the 21st century, already at the end of the second decade of the 21st century, we still see this animalistic behavior, right? Pride makes us more vulnerable to low order spirits. Now, this is only Spiritism can tell us that. This is in question 498 of the Spirit's book, when they explain to us that human weaknesses, carelessness, or pride grants power to evil spirits. When we talk about parenting, first of all, human weaknesses. We all have our weaknesses. So we need to remind our children. We have to say it as is. If you do not work on this, we're going to attract bad spirits. Oh, but it's going to scare them. No, it's not going to scare them. Show them the episode of the cartoon, My Little Pony, where they show that hatred attracts bad spirits and freezes them, and only love unfreezes them. So, if you want, send me a message. I can send you the link to that cartoon. So we're not the only ones on that page. Psychiatrists in England observed, and they are not spiritists, they observed that patients who would come for the therapeutic process would be accompanied by entities. So they created a foundation named Spirit Release Foundation. Beautiful foundation. We've interviewed a couple of them through Cardiac Radio, so you can rescue through Cardiac Radio's website. If you put the term Spirit Release Therapy. And reading the paper, they noticed, and they're not spiritists, these psychiatrists noticed exactly what's written here. That when we are vulnerable through character flaws or illnesses or life's circumstances, we may be susceptible to the attack of certain spirits. Non-spiritist psychiatrists. Carelessness. Carelessness is so interesting because it's that feeling that we see nowadays in our society. I don't care. We hear this so often. I don't care. Right? And that, like, I do whatever I like, the way I like. That permissiveness. A high spirit won't be able to connect people with people that are in that mindset. Who connects with them? Low order spirits. That's why we need to teach our children manners. We care, and that's why here at our center we bought last week a set of materials to insert in the lessons manners. Not because they don't have, because across the board on earth people don't teach anymore. Manners when eating, manners when speaking to people, to children, adults, etc. So we're gonna insert every lesson, every meeting, we're also gonna insert a little bit of that to help our children. Because it is in those occasions that bad spirits end. Easy. One circumstance that can be easy to decipher this. Somebody's coming in and says, hello. And they're like, oh, la, la, la. If somebody who is saying hello and is not receiving any reply is a good person and more evolved, they are gonna understand, saying, oh, okay. If they don't, they are not. They're gonna look at this child saying, see, they don't have any manners. That negativity is already something that sums up to the energy field. Mental darts. So it's important to teach manners and to teach ourselves also to be careful, to be kind, and pride, of course, grants power to evil spirits. We'll know more about this in a minute. Pride increases present suffering. Oh, I'm proud of my humility. Great. Love this one, right? The good spirits say to us in question and answer 933, wounding pride, frustrating ambition, avaricious anxieties, envy, jealousy comprise the torments of the soul. It's when we say, I wasn't invited for that party. And then we suffer. I wasn't invited to go to that housewarming, or I wasn't, that person didn't say hi to me, and then we go home like feeling. And our children, they experience that. And if when they come home, we don't teach them otherwise, they're gonna suffer more. They come and say, oh, I think the teacher threw away my thing because the teacher didn't like my project. I don't think so. Did the teacher say that? No. I think they just didn't know it was yours. It's as simple as that. Why are you going to cultivate that wounding pride just to be tormented and have nightmares? Oh, that friend told me I'm not a good friend. Oh well. Are you sure? Can you write that on a stone? Write it on sand. Because next day they say hello and nothing happened. What do people know? Sometimes we do things we don't know. So we need to teach our children to bounce back and not cultivate this wounding pride. Why? Because if we do, not only will we suffer today, but we'll attract bad spirits that will come and say, yes, you're not a good person. In our mediumistic meetings, we have seen many spirits who harass our children. Our children. The ones who come to the center, because everybody is under the watch care of the good spirits. And spirits who come and say, I don't want you to help them. I don't want you to teach them good things. Do you think they are angels? You don't know them, what they've done in previous lives. Thank God. We believe they are angels, but we can't lose sight that they are not angels. Like ourselves, they've had experiences that hurt people in the past. And if we allow them to go to sleep with wounding pride, we're going to set them up for failure in the long run of life, but also in the present. So we have to be very, very careful. Wounding pride, frustrating ambition, Like, oh, my child didn't get a promotion, didn't get into college. Well, maybe it's not time. Is it gonna hurt if you wait another year? What's the problem? Big deal. Teaching them to take things a little easier instead of saying, oh yeah, oh my gosh, I'm crushed. Avaricious anxieties. Those petty things. When we lose our sleep because of things that are so passing. House, car, job. It's important because we're here, because the day we discarnate doesn't matter. So it's not important as much as we think. It's not. Envy, jealousy. Often we think that the people in our lives that we meet have greener grass in their houses than us. Pride increases future suffering, and you can go to the Heaven and Hell book, second part, and we're gonna see cases after cases after cases of spirits who come back and tell us how much pride increased their suffering, and the planning of their reincarnations just went to opposite direction. Just read the book 50 years later, and at the end of the book we're gonna see the spirit named Lucio coming to the whole group and saying, I was just visiting the earth, and this is in ancient Rome, and I just saw that King Adriano is reincarnated as the son of a slave. We're so proud. Who guarantees next life we're gonna be in the same country, same position, same family, even ourselves? No, but I want to reincarnate among these loved ones. Well, only God knows. And it depends on what we're doing now. That's why it's important to read this book, those books. Plus, pride delays our progress. When Kardec asked in question 785, what is the greatest obstacle to progress? They said, pride and selfishness. We never regress, but we can postpone progress. Sometimes spend a whole life stagnated. We don't move forward. Pride feeds guilt. Ultimately, that's the main problem. Because God is so good, He gives us an inner thermometer. When we pass that limit, guilt surfaces. Joana de Angelis, through Divaldo Franco, in the book Existential Conflicts, explains to us how pride is going to lead us to guilt, and how humility may ultimately heal it. So let us see. We take an action, and everything we do goes through the filter of our conscience. If we are right, of course, coffee break, or tea break. But if we're wrong, we didn't approve. No matter if people approved, we didn't approve of it. We feel remorse. We can repair it or feel guilty. Many people go from remorse to guilt and stay there. And stay there. And stay there. And what happens when we stay there? We started putting our anger towards ourselves for doing wrong, self-punishment. self-sabotage. And it's often unconscious. That's why the spirits on Monday said, don't be petty. Don't fight for little things. There are people at home who fight for food. At home, with siblings or partners. Don't bite my sandwich. Don't sip on my cup. It's mine. Adults and children. Petty, petty, petty. It's so small. As we say in Portuguese and in Spanish, tão mesquinho. It's so petty. It's pitiful. Right? We see other people doing, but I have to do it too. That's petty too. But everybody's doing it. I have to do it too. Why? Do you feel like it? No, but look, people are doing it. That's petty. How can the good spirits help us if we're that petty? They're gonna say, well, if you wanna fight for little things, go ahead. And if we allow our children to be that petty, sorry for us. We're gonna cry twice. Today, seeing the scenario we don't fix, and tomorrow, when they grow up and the mess is bigger, like we're seeing in their White House. Petty, very petty. Things that happen at childhood were not fixed. Now it's a problem for the world. It's clear. And this is not a political statement. It's a social, it's public health, international health. So it's a must that we are responsible as parents and educators and fix it, because the problem of your child will be society's problems tomorrow. So we cannot say, oh, it's my child. I'm sorry, but your child tomorrow is going to be a citizen that is going to bother us. So fix your child today, for the sake of everybody. That child is going to be harassing other children, bullying, demanding, imposing, forceful, because we are not able to fix. And that's critical. The good spirits throughout, since Kardec, throughout the books, the good ones in Spiritism, they say it's vital that we fix at the root of our lives, childhood. When you read 50 years later, 2,000 years ago, we're going to see that everything begins in childhood. So we need to be strong and go there and say, character matters. And it's important to do it. So for us, if we don't fix this pride that will lead us to guilt, naturally anger towards others. In the book Thought and Life, there is a whole chapter about guilt. And in this chapter, Emmanuel 22, Emmanuel says, clear cut, naturally you're going to feel it. But he says, if we don't watch out, we will project devastating energies through guilt and depression. And we often harbor a silent anger that projects our sorrow against ourselves into displeasure and dislike towards others. And then instead of just keeping it to ourselves, we start projecting into others. So it's vital for us to go to the root cause of it all, pride. When we are angry and we want the world to be subjected to our whims. if every child, when they get angry, we tweak a little bit, we'll do a favor to generations. Anger, no thank you. It's not repression, it's education. We don't repress, we educate. Teaching them to manage anger. Breathing, being aware, observing in the body where it feels, and saying, do not manipulate people with your anger. Because then as adults, they're going to be manipulative. Through fear, inciting fear, especially men. Especially men. Making others feel afraid. And then they will end up being bad husbands, bad friends, bad colleagues at work. Going to extremes. When they go, take a gun and shoot. If anybody says that they had good parents educating them, it's impossible to believe that they were well educated. So, no wonder nowadays we have so many cases of depression. Because we are at a time in which we need to shift gears and we don't. So from remorse, guilt, and guilt also leads us to this depression, which is bottled up anger towards ourselves and others. Sérgio Negangeli is in existential conflicts. And it's also told in this book. 1958, this book was written by him. Amazing. At the vanguard of science. When you read in psychology, this was beautiful psychology, way before psychology actually could break it down so beautifully. So what is the solution for us? Jesus brings the solution. The solution comes by going against the antidote to pride is humility. We are learning, all of us, when we do this study, the spirits are telling us this. I didn't create this teaching. I'm just sharing what the books have been pointing out. And since Jesus, before Jesus, this teaching didn't exist on earth. Not to that extent and to that exemplification. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, meaning inner peace. Heaven means clear conscience, peace in the heart, no problems. It's so interesting because there is a group in Ireland of scientists who have a free course online. You can go to Coursera.com. They have a free course online talking about humility. It's fascinating. They talk about the science of intellectual humility. And they have short lectures about it, talking about how important it is to cultivate humility. In their case, they emphasize intellectual humility, knowing that we don't know, being open-minded, and the importance of it all. And again, for us, it's beyond just the intellect, it's humility in the heart. I don't need to know everything. When somebody comes to me and says, how do I do this? If I don't know, I can say I don't know. Oh, but I'm gonna look stupid. Okay, that's okay. People think that they're free to think whatever they like. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. That's what Jesus did. Judas was so proud of himself. He was the most proud of them all. That's why he fell prey to the bad spirits. because in his vanity he thought he had a better plan than the master. And Jesus was so humble. He didn't want to force anything onto anybody, onto anyone. And Judas thought, but how come? We have to have a better plan. And in his vanity, he failed. Jesus teaches us, take it easy. You don't need to prove yourself to anybody, not even to God, because God loves you. So we breathe. But Vanessa, what about my work meeting? You do your job. That's duty. Duty is one thing. Pride is another. But I have to dress up and put makeup. And I have to... That's okay. That's not pride. That's to be a person in the world. Well, can you be humble and be a celebrity? Yes. As long as I don't think that I'm better than others. Is it possible to be humble and be poor? Is it possible to be humble and be rich? Yes. It doesn't depend on the socioeconomic status. Though the external things tease us to that one. And you know, since everything is relative, there are people who live in the slums, and they're sometimes more proud, egotistic than many people are not. One day, somebody asked Chico Xavier, can you ask Emmanuel in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, you have one of the Barra da Tijuca, right? One of the richest places in Rio. And near it you have a community, Islam, very poor, like misery. One of them, like Rocinha. And people are trying to make sense of that paradox. Believe it or not, Emilio came through Chico Xavier and said, you know how God is going to change this? He changes it by doing the following. One life, we're born and you leave at Barra da Tijuca, the wealthy part. The next, you leave on the other side. And then you go work for the big people. And you take turns every life. Until people are sick and tired of it all, they start taking care of each other in a different way. Problem solved. Emmanuel usually said, there is remedy in evil itself. The evil of selfishness and pride. Today we're here, tomorrow we're there. Until one day we think, doesn't make any sense that we keep these two realities so far apart. And we start helping each other and making it more fair. So Chico Xavier, in a very humble tone, he said, I'm very grateful for the challenges that I went through. Were it not for them, I wouldn't have moved forward. And it takes humility for it. Because when we're proud, we're like, we don't accept, we become rebellious. Bottom line, why is it good to be humble? The spirits say when we are humble, we're closer to God. And it's charity. Because when we feel charitable, we help everyone. We're good to everyone, not a few. We treat our children and our children equally. We don't favor our children versus others. We understand the imperfections of people and we say, you know, maybe they didn't think about it. It's what we call indulgence. And we forgive offenses. So how do we exercise humility? The spirits explain. If we suffer human injustice, be indulgent with the wrongs of your brothers and sisters. Remember that you're not exempt from reproach. Oh, but they did this to me. Like many spirits come to our mediumistic meeting. They are harassing people, they are trying to create problems, avenging people, and we say, but have you never done anything wrong? Look at the screen, the spirits are going to show to you, and they realize they have wronged other people. So how can you demand? How can you cast a stone? As Jesus said, cast a stone if you have never done anything wrong. Who can say that? If suffering is slander, bow your head under the trial. Slander is so common, right? That's why the spirits repeat it every lesson, slander, slander, slander. Because people are bad-mouthing each other, creating fake news since ancient times. And they are destroying people's lives like in a snap. Sometimes at work, somebody comes, we're jealous, and people are like, wow, did you see how capable that person is? And then we're like, yeah, but I'm not so sure, you know, I've heard things. What did you hear? I don't want to say it. That's enough. In an interview, it could destroy the job opportunity of a person. Because maybe it's a threat to you. How can we go home and be happy? How can we pray for happiness when we're destroying people's chances and opportunities? And people's reputation? We won't be happy. To courageously bear humiliation from others is to be humble and to recognize that only God is great and powerful. Bullying, 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 bullying. Learning and teaching our children. Somebody comes and says, I didn't like your dress. Okay, you're entitled to say your opinion. Oh my gosh, they didn't like my dress. Why? Should they love it just because you're dressing up that way? That's pride. We need to tell our children. Nobody noticed my outfit. Okay. Right there, nobody noticed. Oh, I'm gonna tell the world. No, it's okay. Did you like it? Be invulnerable. You're being too weak, too susceptible. But I want everybody to say congratulations. Oh. Who are we now? The king or the queen of the world? If we teach that to our children, we are debilitating them. Saying, do not expect to be liked. Do not expect to be approved. But you have to understand people and be kind and help them out. It's your duty, but do not expect that others are going to do the same. Why? They don't know what you know. But Vanessa, they're going to suffer. I don't think so. Only if we reinforce it. Say it's okay. People are distracted. Did you notice their dress? Did you notice their outfit? Did you say something? Because we're expecting. But did you do it? You see? Little things that can transform our relationships. The inner child of us as adults is also like this. We go to work and we expect XYZ things. And that's why often we go home feeling bad. Because we want people to rock us as a baby. But It's so childish of us to think that people go to work to take care of us. That's why Jesus said, serve. Because if we are in the serve mode, we'll go happy to work, to school, and go back home feeling so happy. Because my expectation is to be useful. Even if, but nobody allowed me to help. But I helped through my prayers, my beautiful thoughts, my good attitude. I go home and I say, I, check mark, did what I had to do. Vanessa, is this real? That's what Jesus says in the spirits as well. If we try it, it works. I go to a family reunion, not like, I want to see if they're going to say something. That's so petty, that behavior, right? It's so petty. It's like high school. It's high school level. Like, I want to see if they're going to notice. I want to see if they're going to come up with those comments. So we already go in a battle. We're going there as like teenagers. We're competing and are still working their self-esteem. We should know better and say, you know what? And tell our children, we're making friends, we're helping others. Wherever I go, remember, Jesus is counting on you to help, to serve and to be a peacemaker, but not necessarily with words. Usually without words. Don't lecture anybody. People don't like it. But I'm trying to help, don't. When people want help, they ask for help. And even, psychology says, when they ask for help, not necessarily they even want help. They're just saying it. Publish on Facebook. Right? Don't need to tell everybody. Nobody. Just God, between God and us. But people need to see it. God is the most important. If God is seeing it, peer-reviewed. We don't need everybody else. And I say peer-reviewed, quote-unquote, because God is not peer level. We're saying He's already signing for everybody. So we don't need the approval of the world. Did you see what I did? Did you see? That's petty too. No wonder the guardian spirits told us we cannot help and protect you if you are that petty. Did you see I cleaned this at home, right? I know people who tell me I only do certain things in front of my husband or wife because I want to make sure that they see it. Because if they don't see it, they will not value my effort. Pettiness. At home. No wonder we're that petty outside. Because we cultivate it at home. If you do it with love, you don't need to show it to people like that. Oh, but it was like hours of sweat. Yes.
I'd love to do something at home and not say a word and see if it's noticed.
And you don't say anything. Right? So that's something for us to think about. And when it's super hard, solution the spirits say to us. Ta-da! Pray. You can cry and pray, pray and cry, and say, oh my gosh, I need to overcome this. But no, do not, let us not use the mask. Because when we feel guilty, sometimes we use the mask of the good. Just to make us look good. But deep inside, it's twisted. So the spirits are saying, there is a solution There is a thermometer. All we need to do is practice, work on it. But that's good for us. This week, one exercise we can do. Do good things without saying anything. Without demanding that people observe us. Don't say it. Oh, Vanessa, it's so hard. But duct tape helps. We can use duct tape. You see, I'm not gonna say anything. Oh, but I helped so many people today. That's what we think, right? Sometimes people smile and say, oh, you're great. Because they want to go away quickly. That's the only way we can release them quickly. You have to be careful. So what do? Do the good. Let us all be inspired by this teaching that matches some of the information we received on Monday. Go home, and all of us as a community, let us practice together, all of us, this doing the good without ostentation, being dutiful before God without claiming for rewards, no redeeming of the coupons of God. We can only redeem in the heaven of our conscience. It's not redeemable on earth. Okay? That's the message for a continuation of the study, chapter 22 of this book, and also chapter 24, guilt and humility. In this book, Emmanuel gives us more information that can be very liberating, and living free of guilt can be a completely different life. Any question? No? Okay, so we'll turn off the lights. Thank you, Tony. And prepare ourselves